I'm Writing Desk, and you don't know California Crisis. This is, I'm not sponsored, by the way. I'm just doing this for the aesthetic of it. So, California Crisis is probably my favorite anime, and nobody has heard of it. When you go online, you search on YouTube, you can find like maybe 2-3 videos about the show. If you go and look online in a Google search, you can search around and you see maybe a couple of reviews of it, but for the most part, nobody has heard of it, which is a shame because it's fucking awesome. Should I swear in this show? I don't know. Hey, kitty. Hey. So how did I come across California Crisis? That's probably the first place that I should start, because it wasn't like anyone recommended it to me. How I found it is that I was sitting around scrolling through Tumblr, as you do, looking at my favorite thing to look through, which is the retro anime tag. I love the retro anime tag. I don't really like much anime in general, but the anime that I do like is the retro stuff, the stuff from the 80s and 90s. It's just got aesthetic. So I'm scrolling around and I see a whole bunch of GIFs and stills, just like randomly throughout all these other like tags, and they happen to be tagged California Crisis. I'm like, I've never heard of that. So I look it up. I find nothing. There is no information about this show, but there are a few sites that are streaming it, you know, illegally. But we'll come back to that. Just put a pin in that and we'll get back to that. So I go and I check it out, and the quality of the video is garbage no matter where I look. It's either hugely pixelated or it's got very obvious VHS scan lines, and it's like, what the heck? Where did this come from? Why is this on the internet? Why have I never heard about it? Like I said, you don't know California Crisis, and frankly, neither really do I, because it is impossible to find information about this show. So California Crisis is an OVA. An OVA being something that anime does. It stands for Original Video Animation, and it's basically a direct-to-video anime. It's either a movie or a bunch of little episodes that are strung together to create a mini-series. California Crisis was released as an OVA in 1986 by the production company Hero Media Associates and Studio Unicorn. It was only released on VHS, and if you're thinking, maybe I can try to find a VHS, they are expensive, if you can even find them. They usually go for over $100, and that's because the series wasn't even officially released on VHS to retailers. They were just released to video rental stores. So it wasn't even a video that you could buy, it was a video that you could rent, which goes a long way towards explaining why nobody has heard of it. It was direct-to-video and direct-to-video rental, not even purchase. So of the information that you can find out about it, you can find out the producer and you can find out the director. And those people are, and excuse me, I'm gonna need to look at my computer for this because I'm awful with Japanese names. The producer was Hiromasa Shibazaki, and the director was Mizuho Nishibuko. Now, it was obvious that California Crisis was somebody's baby. Somebody put a ton of care and love and devotion into this OVA, but it's really hard to figure out if it was Shibazaki or Nishibuko. In the few amounts of media that you can find about it online, you can find a couple of reviews. There's one review which is totally unverified, but the guy who wrote it claimed that he was contacted by Shibazaki back in the 80s to review his OVAs in order to get them out to an American audience, I think. It's a little hard to figure out. And this guy claims that Shibazaki was the one who was totally in charge of it. But then if you go looking around, you also find out that Nishibuko was the director and the scripter and the storyboardist. He created all of this from scratch. So someone really loved this concept and someone really wanted it to be a success. But it's a little hard to figure out who it was. Maybe it was both of them. I don't know. Like I said, it's so hard to find information about it. You go to the Wikipedia page, there's nothing. You go online, there's nothing. My Anime List, nothing. Anime News Network, nothing. This was one of the few OVAs that Studio Unicorn actually produced. They did a lot of little animation work for other companies, but they only produced 3 OVAs. Those OVAs being Bavistock, California Crisis, and something called Circuit Angel. And basically, they went bankrupt almost immediately. And it's easy to figure out why, because you look at California Crisis, and it looks incredible. This is an animation style that I have never seen in any other anime. The only anime that I can think of that even gets close to the general vibe of it is Cowboy Bebop, and they're still really, really far removed. It's got a really amazing art style. It looks like a travel poster or an American comic book. There is no anime that looks anything remotely like it. It's very clearly American influenced, especially by artists like Patrick Nagel. Shibazaki obviously wanted people to watch this movie, as he did do a bit of press for it. In fact, he created his own magazine, which he called Globian. He used it to advertise basically all of the OVAs that he was producing. The magazine apparently lasted less than a year, and all it was for was to advertise these shows that nobody saw. Now, that's not to say that the studio didn't have talent. There were a lot of very talented people working on this. Nishibuko specifically is a director that I actually really like. I've seen a few of his other works, specifically Video Girl Eye, which I'll talk about in a future video because I've got a lot to say about it. He really put a lot of love and care into this. The animation alone must have taken forever and a ton of money because of the amount of work that goes into animating those shadows. There's a reason why you don't see animation like this. Another person who worked on this was Matsuri Okuda, who did the character designs. Now, if you know him from The Legend of the Galactic Heroes, and you can definitely tell that this is his art style, just taken in a very American direction. The characters bear a lot of resemblance to other characters that he has designed. The other really talented person who worked on this was Miho Fujiwara, whose music features in most of the anime. She is an incredibly talented singer, and if you think it's hard to find information about California Crisis, it's even harder to find information about her. She only has a few other credits to her name. She did the ending theme for an anime called Marmalade Boy, and she did the first opening and ending of an anime called Canon. And Canon is especially a shame because it feels like a great misuse of your Miho Fujiwara. Miho Fujiwara has a fantastic funk style that's just amazing. Like, this is the kind of stuff that Vaporwave wishes it were. But the music for Canon is just generic anime blah. So what do I know about Miho? Well, I know that she was in a band called the Chocolate Lips. You can find their self-titled album, which was their only album, up on YouTube thanks to a few people who managed to get a hold of the CD. Apparently, she was doing backup vocals for a lot of artists during the 80s, until she met the saxophonist Jimmy L. Weaver, who is not Japanese, but I can't find any information about this guy. This guy has no web presence. I can find nothing about him. All I know is that he was a saxophonist, he wasn't Japanese, and he wound up hearing Miho Fujiwara sing and decided to form a band with her. And you know, their stuff is pretty good. They've got one music video, which you can find on YouTube, surprisingly. And it's just a shame that she never did anything else because she is fantastic. When I think of 80s anime music, this is now what I think of. because it just kicks. So I said that we'd come back around to watching it illegally. So like I said, the studio that animated it, as well as the studio that produced it and released it, they went bankrupt really fast. They don't exist anymore. I have no idea who actually holds the rights to this show, if there is anyone holding the rights to it currently. Because it was released only to video rental stores, it's hard to come across copies of it. It never had an official American release, which means that there's no dub and there's no sub. The sub that you can find was done by fans. I don't know where they managed to get a hold of it, but they have released it and you can watch it on a variety of sites, including YouTube. And I don't think anyone's going to be coming after it anytime soon, so go ahead and watch it while you can. And if you really dig around, you might be able to find the download for it, though I haven't been able to find it lately. Now, I would love to get a copy of the VHS and to be able to watch it in as high a quality as exists, but I gotta say, something about watching it on a streaming site with scan lines along the bottom really aids to the overall aesthetic of it. You know, there's just something charming about watching this scratchy VHS copy of an anime that nobody has heard of. Okay, so I've talked about the background information I know about the anime, but what about the anime itself? Well, when you go around looking online, you're gonna find a few reviews, and pretty much every review calls it forgettable. Which, not to be rude, but the people saying that can bite me. Music and art alone is a huge standout. There's not a single person that I've showed this anime to who hasn't immediately gotten Streets Are Hot stuck in their head, because that song is a banger. I cannot say enough time. That song is awesome. All of the music is awesome, honestly. Go listen to the music. You can find it on YouTube. Though I do understand why some people would have some issues with it and would feel like it's not something worth their time. Although, again, I disagree. And that's because this is really just part one of a two-part series that never materialized. Because, again, Studio Unicorn went immediately bankrupt. So it follows Nowera, who is a 20-something has-been who drinks all day, drives around in his car, and works odd jobs. He's going along one day when he gets driven off the road by a semi-truck, which is being followed by someone that appeared to be the Kremlin, as in USSR agents. So as he's getting away, he gives a lift to a girl who's also run off of the road, but not before she goes and grabs something from the semi-truck. They head to a cafe where they try to calm him down, and she opens up this box that she got, and out of it comes a magic bowling ball. That's about the only way I can think to describe it. It does have a name. It is officially called the Space Mind, but this is an Act 1, so we never actually find out what it does, but I'm getting there. Hold on to that thought. So Nowera and the girl, whose name is Marcia, both grab the ball, and suddenly it gives them a vision of Death Valley. Marcia immediately decides that she wants to go to Death Valley to take this thing back. And the reason why she says she wants to is because it will fulfill the American dream.
American dream. American dream. Huh?
Nowera does not want to get involved, but he does decide to give her a lift into the next city. After a really awesome car chase involving the US Army and the police, Nowera decides that he's had enough and kicks Marcia to the curb. But as he's trying to leave, he overhears someone talk about how they're chasing both him and Marcia. So he decides to go back for her out of the goodness of his heart. He does take her to Death Valley, although he grumbles the entire way. And this is really a road trip movie. Most of it is just them driving around in California, which, I don't know about you, but I like that kind of stuff. The road trip movie is the most American thing I can think of. And this anime is very American, which, is it xenophobic if I say that that's why I like it? Like, how do I say this delicately? Anime has a lot of anime-isms that I don't really jive with. This story structure is one thing. Like, I can't stand stories that go on forever and ever and ever and have tournament arcs and just don't ever stop. But also, I don't really like some of the tropes of anime. And this one doesn't really have any. So if you don't like anime, but you do want something cool and aesthetic to watch, hey, check out California Crisis. Towards the middle of the movie, it sort of devolves into this music video, which I'm not complaining about because the song is awesome. And it actually diegetically includes the singer Miho Fujiwara. You can see in the sign behind the band that it clearly says Miho. Which is pretty cool that they would give her a shout out like that, making her into a star in their show when she didn't ever really get any fame in real life. Eventually, Nowera and Marcia run into Jack, a friend of Nowera's from high school, who works for the US Air Force. So eventually Nowera and Marcia get to Death Valley, where they are chased by the US Air Force, and their car fights a helicopter and keeps going. And if this were an American production, you could bet that there would be a line in there about, "That's why you buy American." I'm not sure if I should get into spoilers or not, in case you want to check it out, although every other video that talks about California Crisis does get into spoilers. But I will say, this was supposed to be part 1 of something, and there is no part 2. So the ending... Well, I've actually talked about the ending before in a video that I made about endings that aren't fulfilling. But that video was poorly researched and it sucked, so I put it on private. So you can't watch it again. Yay. A lot of people that talk about this anime say that it's forgettable or that it's useless or that it's not worth your time. And like I said, I really, really strongly disagree with that. I think that this anime is fantastic. First off, I don't think that art necessarily needs to make a huge grand statement in order to be worth your time. Like, if that were the case, then I would tell people to stay away from any big action blockbuster. It's okay if a story doesn't make a huge statement. It's okay if the story is just there for the experience. But I don't actually think California Crisis is as devoid of a statement as people think. And that is because of what Marcia calls the space mind.
American dream.
She calls it the American dream. Now, maybe it's because I'm a high school English teacher and I have taught American Lit, but I feel like when something trots out the American dream and it's set in America, especially California, there is something that it's trying to get across. Marcia wants to bring this thing back to wherever it came from because she thinks that there will be something good on the other end. The story really does pick up on themes of the American dream, especially with Nowera. It starts out with Nowera getting drunk at 4 a.m. with a friend, reminiscing about the good old days and how none of them actually achieved what they wanted to. Nowera was the star of the basketball team in high school, but now he's just a washed-up has-been. The story is really about him trying to find something that will give him his American dream back. In fact, Marcia even flatly points it out. When he loses his job because he skipped out to be part of this huge car chase, she outright says that that's a job that anyone could do, so it's no big deal if he loses it.
明日から来なくていいってよ。ついてね。
だからあなたじゃなくても済む仕事だって言ったでしょ。
さあさあ、降りた降りた。
ねえ、こんなチャンスもうないよ。
ああ、仕事はクビになるしな。
She's basically pushing him to find something that only he can do. And right now, that's bringing the space mind back to wherever it came from. There's also this section where Noera runs into his friend Jack from high school, who happens to now be working for the Air Force. They have this little joke, obviously something from high school, where they talk about who they admire most.
ジャック・バーロー君、君の尊敬する人物は？はい、ジョン・ F ・ケネディです。その理由は、はい、アメリカ国民に希望を与えました。ノエラ君、君の尊敬する人物は？はい、パン屋のジョンソンさんです。その理由は？はい、腹ペコの時、いつもクッキーをくれます。
Jack says it's John F. Kennedy because he brought hope to the American people, showing some of Jack's character, that he is fighting for his country and that he wants to believe in America. Whereas Noera says that it's the baker down the street who gives him cookies, obviously showing that Noera is kind of selfish and only really looking out for his immediate desires and needs. Since he decides to take the space mind back to Death Valley with Marcia, even though he complains about it all along the way, this is showing some growth on his part. It's showing that he's putting aside his immediate needs, his desire for a paycheck, his desire to have a nice car, and actually doing something for someone else. Now, it is because there might be something good on the other end, but he doesn't even seem to really believe that. He just seems to be going along with it because it is something to do. And with the ending, the fact that it ends in a way that is totally unsatisfying, with no answers being given, I think that exemplifies the American dream. I think that for this movie, the American dream is searching for something bigger than yourself and finding out that, technically, it was the friends you made along the way, more or less. Now, does the anime do a great job of getting this across? No. And I might be reading too much into it. Like I said, I am an English teacher. It's kind of my job to read into things like this, but I do think that it at least tries to make a statement. And whether or not it actually gets it across, that doesn't really matter to me. I like that it gave it a shot. I said that this show wasn't very anime-y, but there are a few little anime-isms sprinkled throughout. This weird little part about halfway through where Marcia offers to sleep with Noera even though she's ambiguously a teenager. And that's weird, but fortunately the anime calls this out as being weird. Noera does not go along with it. He is not interested in her romantically or sexually. And he even outright calls it having a Lolita complex, which he does not have. So, hey, that's good compared to a lot of anime that don't call that shit out. And of course, Jack, Noera's old friend, is the white-haired anime antagonist. But that's okay. I can accept a few little anime-isms. This is, after all, an anime. I wouldn't want it to be completely devoid of anime stuff. I just realized I don't really have a way to wrap up this video. I guess what I'll say is that California Crisis is definitely worth your time if you want to watch some forgotten anime history. And especially if you want to watch something that just looks and sounds really, really cool. I really would like to bring some notice to California Crisis. It's one of the coolest anime that I've ever seen, and I definitely want more people to know about it. And hey, maybe if we get enough people interested in it, we can eventually resurface maybe a decent copy. So now you know California Crisis. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me down in the comments what is an anime that you like that nobody seems to have heard of. And I'll see you next time. Bye. I should have put a coaster down. That's gonna leave a ring on my desk. Good thing I was planning to throw this out soon anyways.